Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Doodle Robot, and today we're going to be working out of Daydreams by Hannah Carlson. I've got 3 viewer questions that I'm going to tackle. One is about acrylic painting, so I've painted the background here. Now in the following videos I'll show you that. Another is about how did I do the granulating watercolors, the White Nights granulating watercolors in one of my finished pages from January through April, so I'll demonstrate that. There's my practice, which didn't come out as good. The demonstration came out better, which I'm glad. A little more potent colors, but you know, it's fine because all leaves are not the same color in nature. And then another color on how to make your own gouache. That's by Happy Catastrophe. So we're going to tackle those 3 questions this time, so stay tuned for the various segments. And in the last segment, I start saying goodbye, but then I realized I didn't show you the finished product, so just kidding. Don't be faked out by that. All right, I'll see you in just a second. All right, viewer question number 1 was about painting. So we're going to discuss a little bit about painting. The majority of my questions come about painting. It seems like I'm in Daydreams by Hannah Carlson. This is the group I have. This is our, what are we in? May. This is our May color, buddy color, group color that we're doing this page. Anybody can join. Just let me know on Instagram and I'll add you. Okay, so I'm going to zoom you down. So lots of questions always about painting. Okay, so I like apple barrel matte colors. You get these at Walmart. I think they're like 58 cents. I think they're closely priced on Amazon. 59, 60 cents, something like that. Even if they were $1.50 or something, they'd still be worth it. I like this brand a lot. And I have for many, many years. You want to shake your paint. Always want to shake your paint. I'm using, this is a new one, Lavender Sachet, and I chose it because it appeared to be very, well, number 1, it's in the color scheme that I'm planning, and number 2, it appeared to be very opaque, whereas light lavender, not very opaque. And if I needed to, I could use light lavender. I would just use more than 1 coat, that's all. I also have lilac mist, which is similar, although lavender sachet is a little more opaque and a little more pastel-y, I guess we'll say. But you know, whatever, you can always add. If I wanted this color and I only had this color here, I would add a little bit of antique white. Antique white is my favorite color of the apple barrels, and it's rather opaque. The white in apple barrel sucks. It is not opaque. However, if you don't have any gesso and you want to lighten lines or something, you could go over it with apple barrel white, a little watered down, and it's basically the same thing. Okay, so that's what I'm using. Oh, sorry, that's unrelated. So I'm going to pour some out onto my palette here. I believe the question was, they wanted to know the thickness of the paint, and usually I just pour it out of the thing. If it's not the thickness that I need, then I would add a little bit of water and stir it up. And as I use it, it dries out. You know, water evaporates, so it dries out. And I have to add water to it as I work. And I'll show you as I'm painting. So I've got some semi-clean water over there. And I always start by, I dipped my brush in the water, I got my brush wet. I'm now wiping it off, wiping the water off on a paper towel. Okay, so I'm just going to dip it in. We're going to see how it is. I'm not going to do this on, and oftentimes I will go over my lines with a black marker, just like a Le Pen, either a Micron, available everywhere, or I tried Le Pens because I wanted to try them and they're a little bit cheaper, but harder to get a hold of. Let those dry for, you know, a few minutes before you do anything wet near them. Otherwise, they're pretty permanent. So I've dipped my brush in some paint. I start with a tiny brush and I do the edges first. I didn't outline this one with black because I think I'm going to go around it with a paint marker, a darker paint marker. At least that's the plan right now. Hopefully we'll stick to that plan. I don't know. So I usually get a tiny brush and then I feather it out. I go thick near the line and then I kind of feather it out. I'm not really going to do that today because they want to know how I paint. Larger spaces, I think was the question. Not really sure. So let me find a brush that I like for that. Covering large spaces, and I'll show you what I do if it's not opaque. Oh my goodness. I'm sorely lacking some flat brushes here. I probably should get to buying some of those. Oh, we don't even have paper underneath here. Oh gosh, it's a catastrophe. All right, I have some paper sitting over here. I want to protect the pages behind, so I'll have some paper. Okay, I wet my brush, I dried it. I'm dipping it in. And it's mostly opaque. Notice how I paint off I paint in a direction this way off the end of the paper. Now you have to be careful not to move your paper or paint like this because you'll get it on the other side. So the other side is pretty clean. Sometimes if I think I'm going to be messy, I will move my paper down a little. That way I don't have to worry about it. Let's watch that dry. It looks like there's going to be a few places that are not opaque. So I would let that dry. But we don't really, we're on camera here. And then I would just go over it again. Sometimes I just do it in spot. It depends on how the paint goes on. Sometimes I just do it in spots. And so very rarely is it a one coat wonder. Usually 2 coats are involved to get a nice flat background. Otherwise it's going to be patchy because it's acrylic paint. That is the nature of acrylic paint. The acrylic painters of old painted multiple layers, layer upon layer upon layer. They did underpainting, and then they did the painting, and then they did some glazing on top. You know, it comes from doing tempera and then oil paint, and then there was acrylic paint, and that's how painters painted and still paint, except for maybe us. We want, you know, we want everything quick in this modern day society. So that was how I do that. Now let's talk about the thickness of the paint here. Fresh out of the tube is nice unless your tube starts to get old and you continually have to water it down. But look at how, are you even on camera? You're not on camera. Look at how nice and creamy it is. That's what I'm looking for. That's perfect. And if it weren't nice and creamy like that, I would water it down. And I too, sometimes I water it too much. And then it gets all kind of streaky when I paint it. But I know that I'm going to do another coat and it's going to even out. Sometimes I'll do 1 coat, so notice I painted in this direction. Sometimes when I go to do my 2nd coat, it just depends on where I'm painting. If I can, I will try to go in an opposite direction. That's going to eliminate a lot of streakiness, the 2 directions. All right, so hopefully that answers my first question. We'll see in just a second. Okay, I'm just gonna paint in silence here so you can see like in action painting, like what I do. Hopefully that will answer a lot of questions. So you can see where I've painted down here. It's a little patchy, but I want it to dry, and then I'll go over and see what I need to do. One thing you always want to keep in mind is kind of paint thin to win. Thick gloppy paint is never going to look good. I turn my book however I need it to be. You'll want to clean your paintbrush out often too. I just added a little water to my paintbrush here off to the side, and I dabbed some of it off. So yes, I had a lot of little rhymes that I would say in my classroom. One of them was thin to win when painting. Multiple thin coats are always going to look better than a thick gloppy coat. Another painting tip, I said this was going to be silenced, didn't I? Oh well. Another painting tip is if you're custom mixing a color, mix a lot. You don't want to run out because it is really hard to mix the same color twice. So I always will err on the side of too much. And then I know that I can always use that paint somewhere else. And if I don't want it to be the same color, which I usually don't, I'll lighten or darken it. And then, you know, whatever's left over I can use somewhere else and it looks like a different color. Okay. I'm starting to run out of paint here. And I'll just, since it comes out of I was moving my paper so that I'm not getting paint on the back side of the page. Since it comes out of a tube or a little bottle, it's always going to be the same color, so I don't really have to worry. There were like little, I don't know, little painting boogers there. I'm just getting them off the page and putting them on the paper towel. I don't want lumps like that in my paint, but sometimes you get a lump and it's just, you know, it's the nature of the beast. I'm going to clean off my brush because it's getting funky. And while I do that, I'm going to shake my paint and add a little bit more to the palette. Just yay much. It dries out fast. My brush doesn't have to be entirely clean. I'm just wetting it, drying it, and going at it again. I feel like this is my Bob Ross moment. I'm painting a happy little purple color here with my happy birds and leaves. Sorry, I couldn't resist. Are you in It's not as easy to paint over here as it is on the other side where I'm just painting off the side of the page. So this is definitely an area that's going to require a second coat. I think most of it I'm just going to go over second coat with just to make it all nice and pristine. My perfectionism level is pretty high, so I like to take the time to do that. Some people are not into that, and that's fine. You can, it's your coloring book, you can do what you want. I'm going to clean my brush and get more paint out. There was a lot of paint there, so now I'm just moving the paint that I put on the paper around, basically. I don't want it to dry thick and gloppy. But oftentimes you'll see me put a bunch on and then I just move it around. So there where I messed up a little bit, can you even see it? I went over the lines a little bit here and there, always happens. If I choose to outline that leaf later, that will be covered up, or if I choose not to outline that leaf with something to cover up the black lines, which I don't always do because I don't really care. But sometimes it's a stylistic choice and I want to outline them. So if I don't, if I just want to leave them black, I can always go with one of my Micron or Le Pen pens, fine liners, and just re-blacken the line. So now that it's dry over here, I can see where all the little splotches are. There's not a lot. I think I'm going to go and just do a second coat everywhere. But sometimes, if there's not a lot of splotches, I'll just touch up here and there where it needs to have the little splotchiness, little see-throughness fixed. It just varies. Sometimes it requires 3 and 4 coats. It depends on the color you're using. This is a very pale color, so they tend to require less coats, whereas something darker is going to require more coats, typically. Depends on the color, depends on the transparency or the opacity of the color. All right, that's it for now. Okay, question number 2 comes from my finished pages, and this is in fairy tales, and it's really close up, so you'll have to check out the finished pages to see the piece. But I was using my new granulating watercolors, both in the flowers and in the leaves. Particularly my White Nights granulating watercolors, as they were the colors here. The Kiritaki Gansai Tambi granulating watercolors are awesome too. There's videos about all of those things. I'll try to remember to link them in the description for you if you want to watch. But there was a viewer who wanted me to show how I use them on this page, and this paper was great. Like, it didn't bleed through at all, any of the watercolors that I used. So I used a mixture of my White Nights granulating watercolors, which I have here. Let me throw that on the floor. I have those out here because I'm going to do the leaves the similar way again. And this was not the Starry Night ones, the Natural Earth ones. Those are the Natural Earth ones. I have them mixed in a palette on the side. This comes from the White Nights palette. I'm also using my Mei Liang watercolors. I'm using the lemon yellow color there. And so we'll just do that. It doesn't seem to work as well on this paper. This is in Daydreams again. It seems to soak in, although it's not bleeding through, so that's plus. Yeah, so we will try another one here. Let's see, I think I want to do a smaller one. Not, like I said, doesn't like spread as well. Although, let me try half the flower. Maybe I let the water soak too much. So I'm putting water down. And then I'm going to dip in the various colors here. Now that's a lot of water for a coloring book page. This is yellow green mist and green mist. And then, so that there's not so much water, I'm going to take paper towel and let it soak up a little bit and add some more. Which is pretty much what I did on the other book. And kind of go around the edges with the Mei Liang watercolor. This one might work better. Okay. Rinsing out my brush. Again, I'm going to put water over here. The trick is to work kind of fast so your water doesn't seep into the page, which can be difficult. But then you have too much water, you gotta dab some off. The second leaf seems to be going a little bit better. And my first leaf over here looks a little watered down. Not as vibrant as I would like. Yeah, I think that one's going to be better, actually. But we'll see how it dries. Okay, so I'm just rinsing my brush off. And that was how I did the leaves. On that page, I outlined the leaves with, I think, a gel pen. I'm pretty sure it was a gel pen. Okay, and the third question that we have, we'll set this aside over there. And we'll come back to it in just a second. Okay, so the second question, or the third. Oh no. I've got too much stuff on my desk. Okay, hold on. Almost ready. There we go. So I was showing this, I think in my, I don't know, one of my videos, I think about granulating watercolors. So this swatch here, these are the Mei Liang, the Pretty Excellent watercolors. Like that. These are the colors as they come out of the pan. And these are actually pastel gouache versions of those same colors. And Happy Catastrophe asked, how did I do that? So yes, you can make your own gouache colors. What you need now, they're going to be kind of pastel-y unless you buy them, you know, made as gouache. Because in order to make your own, you need to use an opaque watercolor. In this case, I used Van Gogh's Opaque White watercolor. I believe way back when I bought this, it was really pretty cheap. I think like $3, which means today it'd probably be like $10 because corporate greed. So I'm just going to squeeze a little bit out here. Maybe. Oh, it's separated. Now, wasn't I just talk about I think in my last video. My, what video? No, maybe it was a video a long time ago. Okay. This is why I like them in those jelly pots so much better. Because you can stir them up. I can't stir them in this little tube here. Alright, well, it's a little corrupted there. We'll use brown. It's fine. So I've got a little bit of opaque gouache. I think I'm going to use one of the browns. I'm going to get some water. They're not ready at all. So the brown kind of looks watercolory like that. And then we'll add it to the gouache. Now it's going to, of course, desaturate it a lot. This would be for use on, you know, when your watercolor is done on top of the watercolor for highlights in traditional painting. So there we go. You could add more to make it darker, but now it's going to be nice and opaque. And there's a whole video somebody asked me years ago, did the opaque watercolor cover other things? And yes, it does. I made a whole video about that somewhere many years ago. I was doing a Carla Magana page. All right, so that is question number 3 that we have. I thank you for your questions. If you have any other questions, let me know. I'll put them in a robot report or in a blip or something. All right, I thank you for joining me. I appreciate your time. I hope you have a wonderful day. Live long and prosper. Bye-bye. Oh, nope. Just kidding. We have to see how this is drying. And it's drying darker, I'm glad to report. I'm going to go back and see if I can make that darker. So, you'll have to stay tuned for a whip blip or finished pages or something to see that. All right, live long and prosper. Bye-bye.